Hey y'all, Big Tim here. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Old School and Bass with Big Tim. Today we're going to talk about a few different things. It's the middle of February. There's been some wild weather. We've had a few tournaments. And I just got some reels back from being cleaned by Dominator Reel Tuning. And let me tell you, I'm really impressed. I had some new bearings put in my old 13Cs. This dude, it spins forever. You saw how lightly I flicked that thing. Now, the scary thing is, I might backlash this bad boy a lot, but I'm going to be able to cast some really light baits. So give my buddy Sam a call, Dominator Reel Tuning. He's very reasonable, and he'll give you a quote on what you need done and all of that stuff, and he's pretty prompt. Now, the problem is we've waited till the last minute, so you might be behind the 8 ball now. But he does real good work. I'm really impressed, and thanks to him for getting me taken care of right away. So, on to new matters. Like we said, I said the middle of February. It's actually the tail end of February. It's what, February 20-something? And we're coming to the end. Next week is March. So, it about ready to bust open, tournament-wise, fishing-wise. Hopefully weather-wise, because weather right now is not great. Today, I think we're looking at 43 degrees, so it's better than it has been in about 2 weeks. We've had a ton of snow here in northern Kentucky. I know some of the people down further south in Kentucky have had a lot of ice. And, of course, we all know what's happened in Texas and how bad they are. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And pretty much the whole southern U.S. has really dealt with a lot of devastating weather here in the last month and a half, and everybody but Florida. But it's been kind of trying, for a lot of those folks around the country. So, let's keep them all in our thoughts and prayers. But in the midst, we've had several tournaments. Well, we're going to kind of go out of order a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the Bassmaster Elite Series on the St. Johns River. What amazing tournament. The coverage on it was phenomenal. Being able to watch the live coverage on Saturday and Sunday mornings on Fox TV as opposed to the computer, I think is a huge player. Hopefully that's going to continue all season long. Granted, later on in the year, we'll probably all be out fishing on Saturday and Sunday mornings. But I'd sure much rather watch that on my TV than, a laptop or phone or desktop computer. It just is so much nicer. I know you guys can cast from your phone to the TV or maybe watch it on YouTube, but having it on Fox Sports, I think, is going to be a big deal for bass. I really do think that that's going to drive the numbers up, and if bass knows how to cover it, it's really going to be a big deal. And one thing I want to say about that is the fact that watching TV on Sunday night a couple weeks ago, they aired on Fox Sports one of the older Bassmaster shows. And I say older, I mean like last year's. And that's the way it used to be. The old TNN, the Nashville Network. When they first aired the Bassmasters, it was on Sunday night at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. After you've gotten home from fishing. And on Sunday night, you're tired, you sat down after eating or whatever, you've driven all day to get back from a tournament or whatever. You sit down in front of the TV and flick it on, and there's Bassmasters. Man, that's where we need to be. That's incredible. I think it'll grow the sport tremendously. It'll make it so much more popular. So I'm really thrilled to see the Bassmasters on Fox Sports. And as far as the tournament goes at Palatka, pretty neat little tournament too. Brian New won the tournament with 79 pounds. He was basically flipping a Cinco type bait and a rattle bait around some lily pads and different places along the system. But the big news for me was seeing Greg Hackney back. I know the wife and I were supposed to go somewhere that Saturday, and she's itching, trying to get me moving, and I'm watching live coverage and watching Hackney, and I got to watch him, live, catch 3 or 4 fish in a row, and to see him back, he's where he needs to be for sure. Glad to see Hackney back. And the way he was catching them, flipping an old rage bug, yeah, real exciting. Love watching him set the hook. Love hearing him talk. And the fact that the coverage would lose cell phone service and whatnot occasionally didn't even bother me. It was just, I loved it, just the whole coverage. And then, of course, the big story, well, I think it's a big story, was Gary Klaus. He made a giant run, and I say giant run, it's not that long of miles, but it would take 2 hours to get there and 2 hours back. And on the first day of the tournament, they had a 3-hour fog delay. They didn't even take off till 10 a.m. And Klaus made this 2-hour run. He had 1 hour of fishing time and loaded the boat in that 1 hour. He led the tournament on day 1. He led the tournament on day 2. And I think he was leading on day 3. No, I think Hackney was leading on day 3. That's right. Hackney took over the lead on day 3. Klaus ended up finishing with a 10th place finish, which is awesome. I understand it's his best finish yet, but I thought that was really neat. I really didn't know much about Gary Klaus other than the fact he's the owner and operator of Phoenix Boats. But as far as a fisherman, I've never really heard much about him. So it was really neat to see coverage on him. I was quite impressed. He looks like a fun guy, that somebody I would enjoy going out on the water with. But that was great. The whole weekend I enjoyed watching coverage. I'm thrilled about it. Just thrilled about it. So also the same weekend we had the MLF Big Five tournament at Okeechobee for the wasn't the Bass Pro Tour. It was the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit. I know it's all kind of confusing, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't really pay much attention to that because I was just so thrilled with what was happening with Bassmasters. But Skeet Reese won that tournament, basically flipping around and using chatterbait and whatnot. And like I said, I didn't pay much attention to the tournament, but I did see that Skeet won it with 82 pounds. So kudos to him. I did look at the top 10. There's a lot of familiar names that were in there. The lake generally fished a little worse than what I would have expected. But, everybody was dealing with weather and all that stuff. But in the top 10, three of the names in the top 10 were guys that are actually fishing the Bass Pro Tour. Probably a couple more that I'm not familiar with. But still, that's a pretty neat tournament. Guntersville is always a place. I've been there one time. I'd love to go back. I was more thrilled with watching gators and iguanas and just the whole atmosphere. Really love the place. Can't wait to get back someday. But also, this past weekend, we had a Big Five tournament, the Toyota Series on Guntersville. This one was of big interest to a lot of people around here. I actually had a couple buddies that were in it, and they struggled a little bit. And to be honest with you, really everybody struggled because the weather was just so harsh. I remember talking to one of the guys that were going down there that I fished a, Bass Weekend Series down at Guntersville one year, and it was on February 14th. It was on Valentine's Day. Yeah, it was before I was married. But anyway, February 14th, I was fishing in short sleeves. Probably could have had shorts on, but I didn't. And it was awesome. The weather was just phenomenal. Daffodils and flowers were up everywhere, and the weather was just incredible. Then the very next year I fished down there, and it was really cold. The ramp was freezing up as the boats were pulling back, the empty trailers were pulling back out. So we had to delay the start of the tournament because we had to get some salt and sand to put on the ramp. Well, that's kind of what happened down here this time. In fact, Major League Fishing pushed back one day the start of the tournament. It was supposed to start on Tuesday, but instead it started on Wednesday because the weather was just so horrendous. I think even when they took off on Wednesday, I think it was like 18 degrees is what I heard. And the forecast never let it get out of the 40s, the low 40s for that matter. So they really had a struggle with weather. And that's going to affect a lot of things. But, somebody always catches them, right? So there was a guy, I've never heard of him, but I looked him up and he's had a couple wins. But his name was Jimmy Washin, something like that. And he had 58 pounds, so roughly about 20 pounds a day, um, which in that weather is pretty incredible. I honestly thought it would take 15 a day to win, and this guy comes out with 20. Um, Pretty incredible. But you know, that tournament, it's Guntersville. It's dominated by grass fishing. It's dominated by rattle baits. It's dominated by chatterbaits. Those are your big key baits down there this time of year. So when I say there was a lot of attention on it, you know, there's a lot of people thinking, well, what's going on down there may come into play because this next weekend coming up, we've got the first Mountain Division BFL at Dale Hollow. Granted, Dale Hollow and Guntersville are two totally different lakes. They have one common variable, grass. So a lot of people will pay attention and see what kind of baits played down at Guntersville, and maybe they'll play at Dale Hollow. Personally, I think some rattle baits could play, but I think it'll probably be more of a Alabama rig bite. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. So I don't know if we talked about another one of the Toyota series. Actually, we'll talk about both of them. We had another one on Toho back at the 1st of February, and Brian Schmidt won that. And by the way, it was Brian Schmidt's 6th Toyota win. He set the record. Nobody has more wins in the Toyota series than Brian Schmidt. And I've always known him as being a Potomac guy. And looking him up, realized that he's had 4 of those wins are on the Potomac or Chesapeake or, you know, something in that area. One on the James River. The guy's just a stud. He wins a lot. And when it comes to the Potomac or anything, James River in Virginia, any of those coastal fisheries in that mid-Atlantic area, Brian Schmidt is the guy. Well, let's face it. But yeah, he won Toho, and he had 66 pounds primarily on a rattle bait. Rattle bait's been big this year. I mean, it always is early in the year, but a lot of people were expecting the fire crawl jackhammer to be a big player, and it has played a little bit, but not as much as some people had thought. Then also, earlier in the year, back in January, I don't know if we talked about this or not, but we had a Toyota Series tournament on Rayburn in Texas, and Derek Mundy won that tournament with one day an incredible weight of almost 40 pounds. He caught the majority of his fish on an 8XD, and after the 3-day tournament was over, he weighed 70 pounds, including a 10-pounder in the last 15 or 20 minutes of the tournament. So that had to be one for the ages. You know, can you imagine being that guy, go out and catch almost 40 pounds in a tournament on the second day, and on the third day, he's got a small limit or whatever, and he's feeling pretty bummed about his chances of winning, and catches a 10-pounder in the last half an hour or so. Incredible. Just absolutely amazing. You know, that would be something that obviously you'll never forget. Anybody that was there will probably never forget it. And I remember seeing the picture of the fish, and it's always amazing to me that big fish have giant eyeballs. And they're just freaks of nature. They're so wild looking. I love seeing them. But that was a great trip too. So currently, right now, right this very second, the Red Crest is going on for Major League Fishing. That's their, I'm not going to say end of the year because it's the beginning of the year, but that's their championship from last year. And we had watched a little bit of it the other day at work, and Brian Thrift was just going after it. And one of my buddies was commenting about how he was catching them on a shaky head, and wasn't thrilled that that's how he's catching them. But in Major League Fishing, you know, it's all about numbers, how many fish you catch versus best 5. So still in all, he was whacking the field. I think he was up by 10 or 15 pounds last night. And today I watched a little bit of it and saw that a guy I'd like to go fishing with. I think he'd just be a blast. Andy Montgomery was really having a heck of a day. And I think old Andy would be a fun fella to go fish with. But, you know, I really don't know. I did actually meet him. Yeah, he was down at the store when we opened his Field and Stream 7 years ago. And he was a pretty nice fella. But I didn't really know much about him then. I knew that he was Brian Thrift's team partner in the past. But that was about all. And we were too busy to chat, so never really had that opportunity to chat with him much. But yeah, what a neat guy. So, like I said, tournament season is about to bust open. Next week is the first mountain division on Dale Hollow. And I'll be interested to see what happens in that tournament. You know, I've got a lot of friends, a lot of buddies that are going out and fishing. And I actually considered it myself, other than the fact that I am not a fan of this weather. You know, you can see I still got snow out here at the house, and it's melting off, and it's going to be real cold. I just don't do well in the cold weather. You know, I'm the only fat guy in the world that doesn't like it cold. You know, most fat guys like it cold, and I'd rather have it 90 degrees, wear my flip flops, and be in the pool. But you know, that's the way it is. And I'm going to have to start getting used to it, I guess, because if I'm going to get out fishing, I'm going to have to deal with some cold because I think it's here for quite a while. Now, granted, the forecast is in the 50s for the next couple weeks, and that'll make the fishing pretty decent. But the weather, you know, the temperature is still a little cooler than Big T likes. You know, I like it a little warmer. So, but if I'm going to get out and catch some fish, I think I'm going to have to pull up some rain gear and get out there and get after it, just the way it is. I will be real interested to see what kind of baits play. I think, you know, obviously an Alabama rig is going to be a big player. I think that single swim baits can be big players for the big fish down there at Dale Hollow. The jackhammer, the fire crawl jackhammer, maybe. Some of the flat-sided baits, you know, like the Berkeley Fritz side, might be a big player. And I'll really be keeping an eye on that. You know, my buddy Joey, he's in it. We got several other buddies that are down there. I probably know, geez, I bet 20, 25 guys that I know personally they're going to fish in that tournament. And I'd like to wish them all luck, but you can't really wish them all because somebody's going to get mad. But one thing is for sure, I do wish Joey. I hope he comes back with a big W. He's due. He's ready for something. And hopefully that happens for him. So make sure you tune in next week. I've got a little announcement to make, and I'm a little leery to do it just yet. But I'm pretty excited about something that's going to be happening here shortly. And tune in next week. We'll talk more about it and give you some more details. But until then, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.